face. It's all that thing. You know what I mean?
To my listeners, I'm hitting record because this is an episode, it's 7:30 a.m. where I am. Where Ross says it's probably like early afternoon. It's an episode I'm so excited for. So think about this. Why do we get dogs in the first place? We get dogs in the first place because we want to be happier. We want to be happier. These are our friends. We want to go out in nature. We want to play. And with like how the internet works, a lot of like conflict and disputes and disagreements are thrown in our face. But the reality is when we return to normal life, we get dogs to be happier. And this gentleman sitting in front of me, I would say he has top 5 content on the internet. I think he's one of the funniest people I know. And I didn't want to get any of like the behind the scenes when you're chopping it up with people before a podcast. I wanted it all on the air. So first off, could you just a quick introduction of who you are, your Instagram handle, and kind of like how you got into this?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ross McNamara, Mac Dog Training on Instagram, MAC Dog Training. It's literally just the first 3 letters of my last name plus dog training. So I never came up with a cool dog training name. I kind of regret it now because like I could have came up with a way better name and I never did. And now I'm kind of stuck with this. So it's Mac Dog Training, not the most creative.
The biggest the biggest food business in the world is basically McDonald's. So I thought it was a cool name.
What? Yeah, good point. That's a good point actually. So like that's the best I could come up with. It seems to kind of it sticks.
What other options did you have other than Mac Dog Training? What were you thinking? Like pity parties, or like what were you going to go with?
No, it was like the one thing I really did not want to do, and like no shame to the people that do this, but like the positive dog training, but it's like PAW, pause. You know what I mean? They put it into positive, and it's just like, come on, like. There's like 100 dog training companies that all have the exact same name. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make it my own name, Mac Dog Training, Instagram handle taken. There you go, sorted. And so that was my whole idea with it. But I mean, I was like training dogs before I ever made it an official business or work. I wasn't getting paid for it. I started off when my family, we brought home this, we thought we were getting a golden retriever puppy. We thought we were getting like a really small little dog because he was needing rehomed from someone else that, couldn't take the dog anymore. So we went, yep, through a friend of a friend, we said, yep, we'll take this dog in. Why not? We'd never owned a dog before. My dad had owned the shepherd 30 years ago. So that was all the experience we had with dogs. So we brought this dog home. He was 9 months old and he was massive. Like he came roaring through the front door and we were expecting this tiny little puppy. This dog was practically fully grown. So we didn't know any better. The dog comes in. The first thing he does is he runs up to my bedroom and pees all over the floor. And that was a sign of things to come because Odie was a great dog, but for the first 3 years of his life, he was an absolute nightmare.
He marked you. He said, "We're going to be buddies, man."
Well, he didn't treat me like his best friend because we'd walk outside and he would pull me down the street. He would I've still got bite marks on my hands because he bit me 3 times in the space of 4 months. He was a really, really difficult dog to have in the house. Wasn't great with kids for whatever reason. I was 9 at the time, so I don't know why we thought that was a good idea. And I can distinctly remember those moments. He would snarl at me, he would bite, he would go and do all this sort of stuff. And it was, like you said right at the start, we bring these dogs in to make our lives better. And in all honesty, to be fully transparent, he made our life way worse. Lucky for us, my older brother he took care of him the most because he was older than me and he could do that. But eventually he had to move away. And so we were stuck with this dog, and like he doesn't care about any of us. My mum and dad are busy, so the responsibility is kind of left on me. And so I'm 13 at this point, and he's still dragging me up and down the street. He's still peeing in the house, all that nonsense, and just the usual sort of annoying dog behaviors that if trainers are listening, they'll know the ones like counter surfing, no recall, all that stuff, the things that sort of add up. Eventually I was like, I need to start doing something about this.
Well, it's been 4 years, dude.
It was 4 years. I had bite marks all over me. Like something had to stop. Even just taking him for a walk to burn his energy was exhausting for me. And I can distinctly remember one night, I laugh thinking about this now, because this is kind of where it all started. Watching TV, and all of a sudden, like something comes on, and it's like, tonight at 8 p.m, a new episode of The Dog Whisperer. I was like, oh, what's this? I put it on, and then I'm watching Cesar Millan on the TV, and he's got, 50 pit bulls, and they're all chilling, and they're going from aggressive to chill, and I'm like, that's cool. How do I do that? And how do I start doing it now with this asshole dog I've got in my house? So, I'm not ashamed to say this. For about a year, I was a Cesar Millan copycat to my dog. I was doing the pack leader stuff. That was me. I was doing a lot of that. I'm also not ashamed to say, like, it worked.
It works. What do you think it's about the industry that, like, Cesar Millan is so polarizing? Like, that works, by the way, guys. I don't know. Newsflash.
It does, I think, and like, so obviously now as I sort of like moved and learned more things, you understand there's a bit more nuance to it.
For
and
sure.
I think that's where he becomes polarizing, because for some people, and I think it depends on the people that take in the information. Some people want the information very black and white. They want this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. This is the state of mind you need to do, that you need to get into in order to achieve that. And then some people, they want it broken down a little bit more. And the thing is, I've always thought that Cesar was very much just I think this is where the issue is. He simplified dog training, and he was really the first person to say, like, hey, maybe it's not the dog, maybe it's you. And as much as people give him a lot of shit, like, and in those early episodes of The Dog Whisperer, he's out on roller skates and he's letting that dog run before he's ever using any sort of his punishment. Or obviously the alpha ruling was controversial as well, but like most of the time he's running those dogs. And that is honestly the cornerstone of, or should be the cornerstone of anyone's training program, is making sure the dog is getting sufficient exercise.
Taking care of their mind.
100%. And I think Cesar gets backlash because obviously he was very much, he was ready to dish out punishment and corrections pretty easily. But I think people forget he was mindset, he was exercise first, which is all fantastic. And I think even the best trainers, regardless of what side of the fence they're on, are all doing that. They should be. But I probably will admit he simplified things a bit too much, I would say.
So are you from Scotland?
Yeah.
Awesome. So like in America, I mean, we have like these like new modern homes, but so not as much brick, but like, I remember I went to the UK and I remember there's still so many brick homes, right?
Yeah.
Like beautiful brick homes. And like, you're never going to say I'm going to build a house out of one brick. People would think you're kind of an idiot. But for some reason, it's not just dog training. It's the education space on the internet is like, we lay one brick, we'll have a Cesar Millan brick and like, we'll implement it and it'll work like 13%, 17%, 25%. And then when we lay the next brick, we're like, that brick is shitty. Well, no, the brick that you're laying all of your stuff on, they work in conjunction with each other to hold up a structure. So this idea that like one person, one school of thought, one education system is the end all be all to building the house of, in this metaphor, training, That's silly. We don't need to chastise like a brick that we used 3-4 years ago, because maybe and almost certainly we're building upon that brick now and to improve our education. So Cesar Millan put the industry on the map, and a lot of his stuff works. Does he simplify things? Maybe, but he's on a TV show, so like there's that element of it. So I go to like almost to a T what you said, like how like people, they chastise or they say like Cesar simplifies things a bit too much. I would urge the industry to stop doing that, with anybody that they learn from and they no longer follow.
I think with Cesar, I think it's a skill, in all honesty, that he was able to take really abstract concepts and simplify it. And yet maybe he did simplify it a bit too much. But if he hadn't, a lot of dog trainers in the industry now wouldn't have a job. And I think some people who don't like Cesar would not want to admit that. But you're right, he made dog training. I remember sitting watching that TV show going, I'm going to go train dogs now. I actually built myself up from that. And yeah, I learned from other sources.
For sure.
And I dug deeper into it. I'm not alpha rolling dogs to this day. However, that sort of opened my world and allowed me to go and find other avenues. And like that analogy, it was a really good analogy. I'm going to start using that, by the way. That's really good.
It's
like to start building a different like structure with that information. It's just one part of it. That's all it is.
All right. So you saw the Whisperer and you're like, dude, Odie's been peeing in the house for 4 years. He's put his teeth on me like 16 times. He's dragging me down the street on this harness.
Yeah. We went through all the tools as well. We did harness, we did the halter. He chewed through 3 of those as well. None of that stuff was working. Like we tried the old school, like chain check collars, that are useless as well.
It's never the tool. It's always the communication. It's never the tool.
Exactly. So then I was like, obviously none of this stuff's working. I just went back to collar, flat collar and leash. And, we just went out there and I went, we're not going for a walk. We're going to just start working on this. And I'm just going to get you to follow me, pay attention to me. And even just that, just being able to go out, not having to go crazy outside, we could actually go out and have a good time. And even just that opened up so many more avenues for us. And I want to say as well, like, Odie passed away in 2022, I think.
Sorry.
But I was taking him to my clients and he was sitting there. He was being like the perfect stooge dog, the perfect role model. And he was able to do that because I started doing all that work with him, and it opened up my world, and it also opened up his world as well.
My takeaway there is your test will become your testimony, right? So like for 4 years, Odie was a really difficult dog, and then at one point you decided we're going to change this, and then he became a mentor dog, a demo dog, which is incredible, and it's never too late to change. So what's your like training style now? Like you work with clients. I love your pit bull videos, dude. He's hilarious. One of his last videos was like, hey, I'm going to teach this pit bull a treadmill. And then the pit bull starts to bite the treadmill and he says, yeah, well, now you're becoming a stereotype. Like I think Matt has some of the funniest content on the internet. What do you do now with dogs? Like, let's say you get a dog, a pitty, a bully, some kind of high drive dog. That's reactive, maybe, they're tearing up the house, they're counter surfing, and a client calls you. What do you do?
So on that first call, when I'm talking to them, I'm always trying to decipher what their lifestyle is. I want to figure out how they're living with the dog. A lot of it is very similar things, and especially if we've got a dog with a bit more dog in it, if we're talking petty, bully, like anything with a bit of drive, I can pretty much guarantee that when I start with that dog, we're going to be starting on play. That's the first thing. We'll get all the management stuff out of the way. So whatever issue they're having, I'll tell them, take a step back. If you're going on walks and your dog is kicking off at every single dog they see, it's okay to stop going on walks just now. let's see how else we can work that dog, not just to burn its energy, but can we build a relationship with that dog as well? Because, again, to be transparent, I honestly feel like most people have pretty shitty relationships with their dogs and they just don't know it because they're trying to live with their dog in a very human world. We don't really allow the dog to be a dog sometimes. And so when I've got a case like that, I want to get that dog on a ball, on a tug, flirt pole. I want to see that dog express itself a little bit. And then I want to teach the owner how to do that as well. So play-based training, structured play, especially in the last year and a half, is really what I've been focusing on a lot. And diving into that is, again, it's another brick in the wall. And that's been a huge eye-opener for me as well. Even when I got my puppy Hendrix, his recall was all built around play. You know, I never did sort of like formal recall training. I just played with him all the time, and then that created a super strong recall. And so that's right now. It's play first, and then we can start messing around with teaching the dog things like specific behaviors, and then we can start opening that dog's world up a little bit more once they have a good understanding of just markers. Make sure behavior in the house is going well. Continue in play, see if we can build that up, and then eventually we can start getting to the nitty-gritty stuff. But I don't delve deep into the actual issue immediately. We work around it a little bit, we build the dog up, and then once we've got the necessary tools in place, and that doesn't necessarily just mean training tools, I mean our communication with the dog, our relationship with the dog. Once we're in a good place with that, then we start addressing the actual issue, which at that point, it's usually minimal because we've let that dog be a dog. We've got all that nastiness out of the dog's system in a productive way. And again, I think play with most dogs is about 50% of the work. I really, really do.
So you were 14 when you first were like enough's enough, and now how old are you, Mac?
I'm 27 now.
27. So you've been doing this for 13 years.
Yeah.
What was the aha moment to go from like that to play?
I was always, like I said, so I ended up getting my border collie Hendrix when I was like 16. So like Odie was fine at this point, so I obviously wanted another challenge. So I got a border collie puppy from working stock as well. So brought him home, and I knew like going into it, border collies have lots of energy. So I guess I'll just play with them all the time. And I did. 2 years, he was a really good dog after that. When it came to then me stepping foot into becoming a professional and now charging people money, I was like, okay, I'll probably now need to, be a bit more systematic with things. I want to present myself to clients in a way, or I want to present information to clients in a way that can make sense to them. So I was I started taking, courses online. It's like, this is how you teach recall. And I remember like reading that stuff and being like, both of my dogs, Odie and Hendrix, have near enough perfect recall. I've never used a long line on them. I've never used an e-collar on them. I've never used treats and intermittent reinforcement schedules. Like, this was all brand new to me. And I was like, how did I get that without doing all that stuff? And so learning all that was quite new to me. And then I had to present that information to clients. And for years, talking about intermittent reinforcement always felt like it wasn't really me, because that's not how I would actually do things. I would have built it up through play. And then at some point last year, I think play-based training is now starting to, I think some people are calling it a fad or a trend right now, and I really don't think it is. But you have your Larrys out there and your Ivans, and they've been talking about play-based stuff for a while, but it's starting to catch on. For me, it was always in the back of my head that this is probably a better way to do it. that it's only the last couple of years I've had the confidence to actually say, no, this is a better way to do it. And when I started practicing it with my clients and their dogs, the results were so much better. Instead of just dog comes back and they get a treat. Like, dog comes back and we play, we have fun. I am the best thing in your world and you know it. And that makes a huge difference. And so from then on, it's because it's more genuine to me. The clients tend to prefer it. The dog tends to prefer it. Everyone's happier. Play-based all the way.
And I would think about it this way too for people listening. So intermittent reinforcement is just like sometimes they get a reward, sometimes they don't. Typically, it's with food, and it's like the whole concept is like, how do you, like the question that comes up on the internet all the time is like, how do you wean your dog off of treats to have recall? That's the question, and then the answer was like, well, just randomly do it. But a real kind of like good school of thought would be like, okay, you could come back for like this like little piece of dried kibble or even liver, whatever. More than likely, pet dogs aren't that hungry in the first place. Have you seen how owners feed them? So like they're coming back for this treat, and it's like, okay, well now I go have fun. Like I want you to imagine something. When you hear play, like people think of play as like fetch or tug, but if you remember, like when you were a kid, like tag is a real game. Like dude, like if you don't have any toys, you can still play with your dog. And there is content about this, but like you could recall your dog and then like give them a second to realize they came back and then kind of play tag and then just like sprint 5-10 yards. And I'll tell you, like the dogs love it. I haven't met a single dog that doesn't like to play tag and chase.
Yeah. It's and I think it's sometimes kind of eye-opening for clients to see that, where maybe one of the difficult parts about this is I need to say, like, relax. Like, your dog's coming back, like, don't worry about giving them food. Don't reach in, like, grab the toy and play with them. And then even when I say that, they sort of like slowly present the toy and give the dog. I'm like, no, run in the opposite direction, make that dog chase the toy. Even then, swipe it away and make that dog work. I think people are like a little bit too insecure. They feel like they look silly playing with their dog. I don't care. I'll go anywhere and I'll look like an idiot in front of everyone. As long as my dog is having fun, I'm having fun. I couldn't care less what anyone else thinks. And I think that's a headspace more people need to get into.
Well, it's a secondary benefit for the human is just like that childlike feeling, you know, because who didn't play as a kid? I mean, when you're a kid, capture the flag. I mean, you're running around your neighborhood, you play hide and seek. Like, I mean, almost everyone out there who's listening to the show, or, you know, we played outside, we chased each other, you know, we played football, both versions. So like, we know what play is like. It's just like kind of tapping back into that youth, and it's so fulfilling.
You know, as well, the thing, especially for dogs, is that, and that's another reason why I do a lot of play-based stuff, because when you look into it, you realize this is really how dogs and other animals actually learn. When they're puppies, when they're litter mates, they're rolling on top of each other, they're biting each other, they're learning things through that, and they're learning emotional control. They're learning about social hierarchies when they do this as well. All in this sort, and it's a really fascinating way of doing it. The dogs aren't giving each other food. The dogs aren't worrying about an intermittent reinforcement. They're not worried about differential behaviors. They're not worried about any of that. But they're still teaching things. And the best part, like you said, in these games when we were younger, we're playing all these games. There's always elements of positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement inherently at play without the use of food. You know what I mean? We can still learn all these things. Like this guy coming up to tag me in the shoulder, the sort of anticipation, that's all negative reinforcement. And he comes over, I get tagged, I'm like, oh, and then I go and chase him again. And then you get the chase and grab there as well. And if we can sort of tap into that with our dogs and we really open that up, and hey, that's not an overnight thing as well. Some dogs need to learn to relax as well around their owners. But I would much rather take the time to teach those skills in that play, build up play with that dog, teach that dog through play, instead of just go outside and go around the block and a heel for 10 minutes and back and forth. There's a time and a place for that stuff, obviously, but that's why obviously I do play first. and make sure I can squeeze as much out of that dog as I possibly can, and then we'll go do all the boring stuff that has to be done. You know what I mean?
Squeeze in as much of the enjoyment, fun, fulfillment. Let me ask you, man. So I think you put together like a 27 video series. You just added it to your website pretty recently, right?
Yeah.
What was that process like? Because like, sometimes people who can, like, when you do something kind of like you do, like you're doing it, you're playing it, okay, it, but then like you have to take all that knowledge and like kind of digest it down into video form and like kind of break it down lesson by lesson for like the everyday person. What was that process like?
Yeah, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It really made you reflect on your own work, because like I said, you need to systemize things. And it makes you realize how tricky it is to systemize something as nuanced as teaching an individual dog. And there's an element of like what works for one dog might not work for another dog. So the information needs to be accessible enough where people understand it, but it also needs to be effective. And that's the tricky part, is working in that sort of middle ground where it needs to work. And so writing all this stuff down, it also helped me streamline my own process as well. Like, why am I teaching this? Is anyone going to really benefit from teaching this thing? Or would it be more beneficial to spend more time teaching this behavior, or working on this, or building motivation here? One thing I did realize as I was making that was how important it is for a dog to have a high level of motivation, regardless of how we're going to do it. Because if the dog's not motivated to work with us, to be with us, nothing's going to work. And so that's a tricky thing in and of itself. Having a dog with a high enough motivation, getting clients on board with creating motivation, sometimes that can be a bit tricky. Maybe the dog does need to skip a few meals if we're building food motivation. Maybe you need to remove toys from the house to create a bit of scarcity. And some people aren't bought into that. And if you're not bought into that, then it doesn't matter if it's my course or if it's an in-person thing, or if you're trying to teach your own dog, it's not going to work. And
a lot of people give you pushback on picking up the toys from the house.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I have had it recently where it's just a guideline, like, hey, maybe let's do this, and then they say, well, he likes to sit with it, he likes to sit and chew on it. I'm like, yeah, I know, that's cool, but you could be taking that time to go outside and play with him, and instead of him just gnawing on a bone or something, you could be going out and throwing it and catching it and actually engaging with that dog in a meaningful way.
I always find it fascinating when owners say he likes doing that, as if like they know what the dog likes and doesn't like. Like if they knew what the dog likes and doesn't like, they probably wouldn't have behavior issues. Yeah. What they're actually saying is, my dog does this. Yeah. And they don't know if they like it or not. He might just be bored out of his mind, and this is like the closest thing to him to gnaw. And it's one of those things that actually makes him feel worse about himself. The toys around the house for problem dogs is fascinating. Dude, pick those up, guys, please. Yeah. Pick those up, bring those toys out, put a cue on it, say like ready, and just run outside and give that dog that favorite toy that he likes outside. But like the fact that people don't understand that they need to associate that with themselves to fix later behaviors, to me is like such a fascinating moment, because I get pushback with the toys too. And I'm like, bro, you just told me 20 problems your dog has, and they clearly don't even like spending time with you. Why don't you use this thing your dog likes to go do something with them?
Yeah. But the problem is, like, that's just a sign of people just wanting the problem fixed immediately. They don't really want to take the time to build the motivation, and I get it. Like if you work a long day, you come home, you don't really want to go and play with your dog. In my opinion, a good 15-minute play session is more beneficial in the long run than taking them out on a walk. And I love telling my clients this, because they're always shocked. I barely walk my dogs. Yeah. Barely walk them. And I can guarantee they're happier than most dogs in my street. They're happier than every dog in my street. You know what I mean? Most of our exercise is done through play. And then maybe later in the day, I'll take them out on a walk, and we'll walk around the street and just to let them sniff and pee and stuff, but that's never their primary source of exercise. We go out, we do big, expensive play, and then after 15 minutes, they come in and they sleep. They don't need to be sitting and chewing on a toy or anything like that. It's not beneficial for anyone. And so there's for them to understand, they get that exercise and they get that play through me. It means there's no room for issues.
What you mentioned, you never used the knee collar. What I guess you never needed to. Was it at a point, because like the e-collar is such a contentious tool, especially I believe in Europe. You just never needed to. You were against it. Talk to me about like how that, and also like how Europe and where you are views different tools, right?
So I've owned with Hendrix and even Odie. Like Odie's an interesting one. Like I just never felt like I needed an e-collar for them. And even this is funny, like Odie, by the time he was like 13 or 14, he was deaf, and he still had better recall than every other dog locally. Like he would always turn around and look, and I would do this big gesture, and he knew that was a recall cue, so he would come back every single time. However, as I started working with more dogs, and obviously as I've got my own bulldog now as well, she's got a bit more kick to her, she's got a bit more drive. She's forced me into sort of going deeper into training, and it's forced me to look at other ways to train dogs. And I had a little bit of experience with e-collar stuff by then, but she's really forced me into the deep end, and we do a lot of sport work with her now. So again, even more nuanced training. And I think part of being a good dog trainer, and everyone says this, you need to be open-minded. I do believe that's true, but you do. When I do work with her, the e-collar comes in massive. Like with Hendrix, never use an e-collar on him, probably never will have to. I maybe use it out of curiosity on him, but he does not need it. Pepper, my bulldog, she needs an e-collar. But she needs an e-collar, and it leads nicely into the next thing you're talking about, which is the contentiousness around it. People who view these tools with such negativity, they don't really know what the tool is. They've never taken the time to look into the tools and see how the dog actually looks. They've got a picture in their head. They think e-collars are the shock collars that were being used back in the 60s. It's not really like that anymore. There's a system to it. Dogs' welfare is put in place. We're doing everything any other trainer would do. We're layering e-collar on top of it. But to be able to have that extra tool in place is massive. However, in Europe, I'm not sure what countries specifically, but it is banned in a lot of places. Scotland, it's not banned, but I feel it coming soon. I really do. It's been close. Last year, it got pretty close. But there's been a decent enough pushback. I think as well, and it's probably something I'll need to look into, is just putting more education out there on the e-collar, because people need to learn what it is. And hey, if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't want to use it, that's fine. But people need to understand what's actually going on. There's no reason for a ban, because ultimately it is helping dogs and it's helping owners, and there really shouldn't be a need to scream bloody murder because of a tool that you don't understand.
Ross, let me ask you, were you a troublemaker in school?
I wasn't, I wasn't the most productive in school, put it that way.
Same. I asked because the dogs that struggle with the e-collar, whether they're like shut down or have bad kind of vibes, I guess people would call it, is I think the education needs to be around simultaneous conditioning. Like I don't actually see a ton of information out there about like simultaneous conditioning versus, I guess, normal conditioning. But if you just think about it, right? Like, let's say you were told to do something, and before you even had an opportunity to comply, you were kind of hit across the head. Nothing crazy, but like something that it was like kind of annoying, right? Like an annoying. And I see that so often, right? Like you'll say, dog come, and right away on the leash, or dog come, right away on the e-collar. And I think, well, I don't think I've seen this. The dogs that get really shut down are the dogs that get that with bad training, with like high level, where they don't realize that their behavior has an impact on whether something aversive or uncomfortable happens.
Yeah.
And there needs to be more discussion around that. Like, give your dog, because in the beginning, the dog doesn't know anything, right? So people are like, I'm going to help right away. But there needs to be this education on like, hey, train the way that you're going to do it for life. So you say the command and then give them a second pause like this. I always say to my clients, the music's in between the notes. Pause. Give them a chance to comply. You'll get on the leash. You'll get on the e-collar. You'll get on all of it like that. But give them a second to comply versus this kind of like simultaneous conditioning I see where with some dogs, it doesn't matter. But with some dogs, it was really annoying. And I know that if I was a dog, I'd be super annoyed if I never had the opportunity to not get that annoying feeling.
I think what you've kind of hit on there is like letting the dog make its own decision about what's going to happen next is huge, because
it's everything.
Nobody does, whether it's trainers or owners, we're so quick to just give the dog feedback immediately. Yesterday, I had a handover session, and I did all the usual systematic stuff with the dog. We're going through obedience and using the leash and stuff. As soon as I give the leash to the owner, he's walking around the dog in heel and he's just popping for no reason. And then he's saying sit, and then he's popping 3 times. And I'm like, no, wait. The dog knows sit. Give it a second. But I feel like for owners specifically, having them wait, like give the dog a command and waiting for the dog to respond. It might only take like 2 seconds, but for the owner, that's a very aversive 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I guess we're not getting immediate feedback, or we feel like the dog's being disobedient, when really the dog's brain just processes things a lot slower than the human brain. They don't speak words. So in order for them to understand the words we're telling them, swirl it around in their brain for a bit, it takes a bit of time, and it may only be a couple of seconds, but give the dog an opportunity to respond. Like I said, how they respond, there will be a consequence after it, whether it's positive or negative, but we'll give them that feedback eventually. But I'm constantly telling owners, like, just hang back a little bit, allow the dog to make a decision. That's in obedience, but I'm also big on doing that in reactivity.
For sure.
We'll manage the dog, we'll heal the dog, we'll put the dog into position. But if we've got the opportunity, sit back, let the dog watch as this dog goes by. And owners
out of command.
Yeah, out of command. I'm huge on that. Like, I'll teach obedience, but I'm like, let's just let the dog out of obedience. Long line, let the dog walk out. Owners hate that. Owners hate that because they start feeling like they're losing control. And you can see where the contention in the relationship has started to come from, because they've been so they're like holding the dog's hand the entire time. So when it comes to allowing the dog to make a decision, they can't handle it. When really, if we went through the process, the dog should be able to make a good decision. And hey, it might not always make the right decision, but there's a learning process in that as well, where we can give the dog feedback based on its own decisions about its behavior in the environment.
I don't have any science to this, but I do believe, and watching TWC a little bit more recently, like the trainers, is how patient and how much time they actually give the dogs to like kind of cycle through all of those emotions. Yeah. I'm sure there's some scientific kind of reasoning to it, but we're always so quick on the draw that I've gotten way better. I've always been in the sense of like, I understood the concept of letting your dog make decisions, but then I'd come in maybe a second or two. But now, like, is that like, and with new dogs, blow up and just let them cycle all the way through. You'll come in with your feedback and your correction and all that stuff. That will come. That's not even that big a deal. That's kind of easy. But letting the dog cycle through like that whole loop of how I felt about something, how it didn't get me anything in the first place. Yeah. And then you look back at the owner, and the owner's just chilling. And this other guy, I kind of like this guy. He played with me earlier. He's confident and confident. Back to Cesar. Yeah. Well, like, that was weird. I mean, I kind of looked like an idiot there for a second. Like, I swear, I think, like, not every dog, but dogs kind of pick up on that. You just, like, give them agency over their own life. And I was never, like, people ask, like, will I do protection or, like, sport dog stuff? And I probably will. But I'm not a good obedience coach. Like for a long time, I didn't actually do very much obedience other than like recall and maybe a down, stay, kind of just like the basic stuff.
Yep.
But I was always able to solve behavior cases because of just learning the patience of it, like letting the dog cycle through.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, dude. You grew your page on Instagram. I think you have over 60,000 followers, tons of engagement. People love you. What would be your tip for, because so this is what I've been thinking a lot about. Since COVID, there's 25-year-olds, who love dogs, been with dogs their whole life, who want to get into dog training, right? And say what you want, you have to create content in today's day and age because it signals, who you are, what you're about. But then at the same time, you need to learn how to be a dog trainer. So on one side, you're learning how to be a dog trainer. The other side, you're building your business. What advice would you have to other young professionals, other young people who just started maybe 6 months or a year ago in this space who like it, but it's hard. It's not an easy world.
The one thing I would say is, especially if you want to use social media to build your business, stop advertising to other dog trainers, because that's what everyone loves to do. Everyone, you see it all the time. You go into people's pages and they start using all the terminology that I know and that you'll know, and I know exactly what they're talking about. The thing is, me and you aren't the ones buying their services. We're not giving them the money. They need to talk. The way I put my content out there, if I'm describing maybe a process I've went through or a specific issue I'm describing, I'll say it out or I'll type it out as if I'm speaking to my neighbor who doesn't know anything about dogs. I'm not going to use all the fancy terminology. I'm not going to try and make myself sound smart so that other dog trainers can go, oh, he knows what he's talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And I know I can work a dog. So I'm not trying to impress anyone. All I'm trying to do is communicate clearly to the owner. And heck, maybe even if you're not that interested in using social media to build your business, if you do just want to put stuff out there to educate people, then that's even more important. The moment you use intermittent reinforcement, okay, we've already spoken about that. People listening to this who understand dog training, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I know exactly what they're talking about. If you put a reel out on Instagram, you've got 3 seconds to capture someone's attention. And if in the first 3 seconds you say intermittent reinforcement, scroll, you've lost them. Nobody cares. It's as ruthless as that. It really is. And so when you start saying those words, the regular people who are going online to find help, they're going to see that and they already feel like they don't know anything. You start throwing in new terminology to them, you've already overwhelmed them, and then you've lost them. So my advice would be, coming back to Cesar, simplify it as much as you can, whilst also still making sense with what you're saying. Still be efficient in what you're saying, but don't overcomplicate things just so all the other dog trainers can understand you. It doesn't matter. You need to educate the people first.
Man, my team's going to clip that because that's amazing advice. I mean, now while you were talking there, I was trying to stay present, but also I was like, man, am I doing that? How can I simplify it down? Because, right, like, okay, you could always kind of try to dumb it down more and more, dumb it down, like simplify it down more and more. And I was like, he's so right. Like, he's so right. Like, are we trying to signal to other trainers that we know our thing and like get like that, like, hey, you're doing good versus I'm trying to teach people, which is my end consumer in the first place.
Well, it's the validation that we like, especially for younger trainers. It's like the other trainers know that I know what I'm talking about, and that feels good, and I understand that. But if you're truly confident in yourself, you should be able to really, really simplify things so that everyone else can understand, and that's how you'll draw people in. And I get comments or like people messaging me, and they'll say things like, hey, like, I've got a dog, like the dog's fine, but I like watching your content because it's just easy to understand. And it's those three words, easy to understand, or you simplify things in a way that other trainers don't. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I've just like stolen ideas from everyone else, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can put it in a way that everyone else understands. And that's what people really, really like. And that's kind of, I deliberately do that because I know that's what people gel with. People like that stuff. They like not feeling like idiots. And so you need to put information out to people in a way that they will understand. That's part of your job as a dog trainer. Ultimately, you are an educator, not just to the dog, but to the owners as well. So you can train the dog as much as you want, but if you make the owner feel like they're an idiot and they have so much work to catch up on, you're going to overwhelm them, and then they're done, and then they're not bought in.
How did you get most of your, so you have like an online presence now, but for local, right? Where did most of your clients come from? Is it word of mouth? Was it, advertising? Was it content?
I'll say I've never actually spent a single penny on advertising. Never once. Maybe like early days, I might have boosted a Facebook post here and there, which never really worked anyway. Most of it comes from the content creation. But obviously word of mouth early days as well. There's still a decent amount of word of mouth, especially locally, which helps. But I get a lot of people. I do consultation calls multiple times a week from people all over the world, and that's simply just through content creation. Just people that have seen my video and like and follow it, and maybe even if it's just like a meme that I've put out, people like that, and then they follow, and then maybe see another one of my videos and you see that, and then that's how people start to resonate. It's not just me going, hey, buy my thing. People go, no, I don't know who you are. I don't care about you. Why should I buy your thing? Whereas if I can just find something I think's interesting, put it out, maybe it'll resonate with someone somewhere, and then that's what gravitates them towards me. And that's if you're efficient with that, you don't need to pay for advertising. Your content is your advertisement, because like you said, in the modern world, you need to have that online presence. That's what people are ultimately looking for. And it's a bit of an attention game. So you can get attention however you want. You don't need to do videos like me or anything like that, but you need to have some online presence, and you need to show up somewhat regularly on social media. And if you're efficient with that, you shouldn't need to pay for loads of advertising.
Well, it's hard to make videos like you. You're a jokester. You're hilarious, dude. Let's be real. Come on, that's a natural. That's a natural. If you needed Cesar Millan for dog training, you did not need someone for making quick hitters on Instagram. That's a natural talent. Am I wrong?
It's the thing is, it's a little bit deliberate at the same time, because, and my other goal with it is I'm deliberately trying to make dog training accessible. We know Ivan. We know, you had J Jack on. That I massive respect for J Jack. I mean, that also was him who taught me. Like, I learned a lot about play-based stuff from just listening to his podcast. Regular owners could learn so much from learning his philosophies. If you go out to anyone in the street and ask them who J Jack is, they don't know who he is. They don't know who Michael Ellis is. They don't know Ivan. However, it can be our job to take all that information and spread the gospel, basically. And that's what I like doing. So I take the information, put my own spin on it, make the content around it. Say, hey, this is how I train dog. I use this stuff. And I don't use all the fancy words. But I put it out, and I dish a bit of humor in there as well, and I make it look accessible and relaxed. And that's what brings people in. I'm not standing there with a clipboard and counting out exactly how many treats and talking through an exact process. I show up as myself, essentially. And I think that's what people really resonate with. You know what I mean?
What has sport dog training taught you?
So, like you said yourself, like, you're not a big obedience guy, and I'm not really that much of an obedience guy either. And even with the dogs I'm working with, it's kind of a joke. Anytime I go to take the dog out to do obedience, I always kind of go, All right, let's go do some obedience.
It's boring.
It's boring. I don't really enjoy it that much. The dog can enjoy it, but ultimately it's just the repetition going through it. And yes, it's almost like a necessary evil. But to me, doing sport work, so we do PSA, so there's a protection element and there's the obedience stuff. I was actually quite surprised how much I've taken to the obedience part of it. Just getting into the details. I'm actually a very detail oriented guy, so I really like figuring out the little things. So even just when it comes to teaching, a focused heel, there's so many elements to that, and because you're all judged, it needs to be perfect. With pet dogs, you can get away with a lot. You really can. You're not judged as to a high standard. Usually, you're just called in to get the dog to stop doing things.
For sure.
Whereas when you're in the sport world, you're working with higher caliber dogs. It's a different animal, and you need to be able to control that dog in drive. Again, that's also reinforced the need for play-based work, because a lot of these dogs couldn't give two shits about food, but they'll go nuts for a toy, because that's where they want to put their energy. And so being able to control a dog when you're in that state of mind is massive, and I think that's something everyone can learn from. You're working with serious dogs, and you need to be able to communicate to them when they're in that headspace. And if you can control an animal when they're in that headspace, you can do anything with it. And the sport world has really taught me that. I was a little bit opposed to going into the sport world initially. I don't really know why. It was like everyone else was doing it, so I didn't want to. But then I got Pepper, and then I was like, I'm probably going to do something with this dog. And it was either GRC or PSA, and she's good at both of them, to be honest. But it turns out I ended up getting really drawn into the sport world, and it's taught me so much. And I genuinely think, obviously owners, but I think dog trainers, there's a lot to learn from in the sport world. It really, really is. And I think if anyone's open-minded, you could maybe dip your toe in it just a little bit and see what you could learn.
There's a great video by Pat Stewart and YCA, Yorkshire something. And it was exactly what you just said. I mean, it was talking about controlling dogs in drive. And if you think about reactivity, right? Like that's such a common problem for everyday owners. And if you think about it like railroad tracks, right? Like every emotional state kind of is this like parallel railroad track. And in reactivity, that's like, let's say it's near the top, right? That's like peak drive for the dog. And then most owners are interacting with their dogs on like the bottom, like the chill level, right? So if the owner is always on the chill level with the dog, and then the dog gets up here, you're not able to bridge that communication gap. So what you need to do is be able to get up to that arousal state of mind with the dog, kind of see eye to eye there, and now you're able to navigate the dog through emotional levels. And Pat's a great teacher. I mean, he did a great job in that video. If you guys haven't seen it, I think it's just called like YCA and then Pat Stewart. I'll come up on YouTube. But I thought it was a really simple way of explaining kind of like reactivity and how to fix it. Yeah,
I think that's been a big part for me as well, as we've got these dogs, like let's stop trying to bring them down. Stop trying to bring them down. Let's meet them where they are.
Yeah.
How do we get there with that dog? And that's something I had. I'm sure they won't mind me saying this, but I had an online client who they've got a working line border collie, reactivity obviously, and they were hesitant to go to the park and play with the dog because it excites the dog so much. And I said, no, that's the reason you should be doing it, because you need to get that dog into that headspace, and you need to be able to control that dog then, because it's the exact same headspace the dog's going into when they're reactive. It's the exact same thing. All the same drives, all the same dials are being turned, and you need to be able to turn them even just a little bit this way, or just a little bit this way. Nobody's asking you to switch the full machine off, because that's not going to happen. Not with these types of dogs. But even if it's not a border collie, even if it is just a Labrador, a Retriever, a Beagle, figure out how to work that dog when they're in a state of excitement, And like I said, if you can control an animal when they're in that headspace, you can do anything with them. But everyone's always trying to bring the dog down, and that's where you'll end up butting heads.
You consider yourself an empathetic person?
Yeah, I would say so. I can see the perspective of the owner and the dog in most situations.
I really struggled in school, not because I love learning, but just by nature. Schools in America are really interesting. So if you get in at like 7:30, 8 a.m., you might have a little gym class somewhere in between, but you're basically like kind of sitting from 8 to 4, 8 to 3, something like that, right? With very little free time. And my biggest pet peeve, and you'll tell me your biggest pet peeve, I keep these like around 60 minutes. I don't know how Ivan does a 4-hour one. It's actually incredible. So like one of my biggest pet peeves was where local trainers would like advertise like, look how neutral my dog is. Like it like they were like neutrality was like the peak of the dog's behavior. And so much of my trouble in school was like, dude, it's not that I don't want to be neutral. I would actually argue neutral is kind of a default state. But to ask me to be neutral all day long kind of feels like you're turning me into a robot and you're not letting me be me. Like I want to go play, I want to go run, I want to do something to burn off. It's not just physical energy, it's mental energy. We call it all like kind of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. You're not giving me anything. But like my biggest pet peeve is seeing like, look how neutral the dog is when guests come over. Dog's on place.
Yeah.
Look how neutral my dog is at the park. Dog's in a down. Everyone else is having fun.
Yeah.
So it's like you're treating this dog like there's some kind of like Hannibal Lecter psychopath that can't go near and interact with the world, just has to observe the world. And then they're like, but they glorify it, right? Like they glorify, like this is like the peak of the dog. Look how neutral. Yeah. And I'm not saying neutrality is bad.
No.
But that's not the default. Like that's the neutrality will happen if the dog is fulfilled. And it really used to piss me off so much. It used to the neutrality part. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you have a pet peeve?
Yeah, no, it's the exact same thing. You see it all the time. Look how neutral my dog is, and they're on a heel, and either the dog's depressed in the heel, it's just like walking along with us, and I think, this annoys me just as much as when the dog is looking up every 3 seconds for the reward. Like your dog probably doesn't even notice that there's a dog over there anyway. You know what I mean? And then what happens when you take away that reinforcement? What happens when you go 4 steps and don't reward the dog? Dog's, oh, there's a dog over there. Boom, lunge. You know what I mean? The dogs, we come back to it. The dog's not making its own decisions really. We're still being the puppet masters. And so to me, it's much more impressive to see a dog that, previously has had behavior issues, and now dog's out in a park, and it's just sniffing. And there's a dog over there and it's walking past, and then maybe it's not in a super tight heel. Maybe it does have a bit of freedom, but that dog notices that dog or notices that person, and it just has that's real neutrality. It's not there's a person, come get, like, I want food now. I'm going to automatically come back to you. Like you said, time and a place for that, 100%. But if we're doing that for 4 years, 5 years, you're still, and people don't want to hear this, but if you've been training a reactive dog for 4 years and you still have to put it into a heel past every single dog that comes by, and you're still rewarding it, you haven't fixed your dog, you're still in management. You're still in management. Nothing wrong with management, but you can't say that's fixed. You can't say that's rehabbed. You can't say your dog's neutral, because you are a puppeteer behind that, and you're managing your dog's every movement. The dog is not making its own decisions, and it's not processing the environment, and it's not changing the emotional state of that dog.
Let's wrap up with this. Any trainers, you shouted out Jay Jack, Larry, Ivan. Those are kind of the vets in the game. Any other trainers, or seminars that you would recommend for people, whether that's in the UK or overseas here? And it could be social media also, like good trainers that you follow on social. They might not even do seminars.
I'll tell you what, it wasn't one of the first work. Well, it was in the first sort of group of workshops I would start going to. one trainer I learned a lot from was Chad Mackin. I actually learned a lot from him. Obviously, he's been close to J Jack as well, so I think that's where that came from. Just the way they put things as well. They take these abstract concepts and they explain it all so simply. And it's really where I learned a lot. And I think you don't need to be in the dog industry for 8 years to learn from these people. You know, Chad Mackin, J Jack, Tyler Muto as well. Always been a big fan of him. I think Tyler's actually he's got considerable dog, I think. Big on that. I really like his stuff there. There's always more to training than just teaching the heel, just teaching the sit. It's how do we interact with our dogs? How can we learn to interact with our dogs better? You know, that's if you go looking for the information, you'll find it. But like you said right at the start, you need to be willing to take bricks from different places and make a different building out of it. That was what I did for a year. I just researched. I found information from people I like. I found stuff I agreed with and I didn't agree with. And I learned to form my own opinions from that. And I think everyone can be doing that themselves by going out and researching, seeing what trainers they like. If they don't like my stuff, that's fine. Go learn from somebody else. But our job as content creators should be putting our own information out there. As dog trainers, should be to put content out there. And then maybe we can be that next person someone learns from. And then maybe we can become, you know, the person that opens somebody's eyes to the fact that there's more to dog training than just the heel. There's more to dog training than the place command. And we can be the catalyst for that person's journey. Whether they go into professional dog training or they just learn one tip and it's made their life so much better with the dog. That could be us.
Do you see yourself coming to the States anytime soon?
I would love to. It would be tricky. I was over in the States a couple of years ago, and just getting through the visa application process was a bit of a tricky situation. Like takes a while to get that sorted. But I would really like to work over there, just because are you Florida?
South Florida, Boca.
South Florida, yeah.
An hour north of Miami.
Yeah, so like I would even just like to work there just for the better weather, to be honest. Like we're in the middle of winter here. So that's a bit when you're having to work dogs in the middle of winter kind of sucks. So I would love to come over and work dogs in reasonable weather, although it's maybe a bit too warm sometimes. I would love to like head over there and actually work. But I don't have any immediate plans.
All right, man. I mean, if I could see you doing really great in like a seminar fashion.
Maybe we need to put some plans together then. I'd love to do more seminars. I haven't done a whole lot of them, but it's something I'm starting to do a bit more of now.
It's a little challenging, I imagine, to try to help someone in like 1 or 2 or 3 days. But I think it also, like, remember back to the videos that you put together, it's probably a good challenge to figure out how can you condense like the really important stuff to have some impact over just a few days. Mac, you've been amazing. Okay. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And look, I think there's so much here. In the beginning, we talked a little bit about Cesar, your own personal dog, kind of, you know, the catalyst that got you into this. Then we went, you know, dog training, tips, advice, kind of anecdotes that worked for you. And then we ended up with, you know, mentors and also kind of advice for other people just starting out in the business. So there's tons of value for anyone listening. I appreciate it. Mac Dog Training.
Thank you very much. That's been great.